Hey, this is it. This is the preview for the 2022 NRL Grand Final. Penrith Panthers, Parramatta Eels, Nathan Cleary versus Mitch Moses. This is possibly the best choice for a Grand Final. If you were picking two random teams and you were trying to figure out your ultimate Grand Final, for me, this is possibly the best one. It's the Battle of Western Sydney. And look, Parramatta haven't won a Grand Final since 1986. That was 3 years before I was born. And this is only their third Grand Final since, obviously, 2001 and 2009. They also made the Grand Final in those years. Brad Arthur, I mean, look, he's been much maligned as the coach at times. He's been heavily criticised at times. You've had the salary cap scandal while he's been there. You've had the wooden spoon in 2018 while he's been there. Since 2018, however, the criticism is they can't get past the second week in the finals. This year they've done that, and they like winning 3 in a row. So this is the third match since their last defeat. So if you're a betting person and like that kind of, trend, your money's on Parramatta. If you're a Penrith betting man, this is their third Grand Final in a row, and they're trying to do a feat where they win all the Grand Finals in the men's game from SG Ball all the way up to NRL. I mean, that is something that hasn't been done before, and this is the first time ever that they've had 3 Grand Finals in a row as well. I mean, the matchups are intense. The forward pack, Regan Campbell-Gillard going against his former team. You've got Cleary versus Moses in the halves, because if Cleary doesn't get selected for New South Wales, Mitch Moses is possibly the second best half, the 2 best halfbacks in the game, quite frankly. And the battle of the coaches. Ivan Cleary was much maligned for never going the most games without winning a Grand Final. Brad Arthur's not that much far behind. And yes, as I say, this is Parramatta's first Grand Final in quite some time. Penrith are the team to beat, and Parramatta have proven you can do that in the regular season. So they're not going to be overawed by what Penrith put in front of them. Where it's going to be key is the kicking game. Who can get dominance in the forward pack? And that's where, rotations with the interchange is going to be important. And that's where I think Parramatta have a slight weakness, with Jake Arthur as the utility. They've gone with a 3-1 split. On the bench, which may be the joker in the pack, having Jake Arthur, who isn't beat up, he is fresh, and he can come on in the halves or as a centre, and then they can sort of change how they approach the game. But it is also a risk because you've taken one less forward out of your interchange, and he's not truly a utility kind of player like some other players who can play in the backs and the forwards and cover multiple positions. So he is kind of limited in the positions he can cover from that utility role. On the Penrith side of things, they did what Parramatta did last year. They lost in week 1, and then they went on to win the Grand Final against the team they lost against, which is what Parramatta are trying to do this year. And that is, again, very interesting if you're a betting person looking at how it went last year. Yes, Parramatta are going in as underdogs, but I wouldn't say it's a massive difference in quality between the two teams, really. Yes, Penrith have been the best side in the regular and post-season, I would think, in the last 3 seasons. They have been the dominant force. The Melbourne Storm have passed over that mantle, so to speak, to Penrith now. I think the Melbourne Storm, their era is now over, alongside the Sydney Roosters. I think they're 2 teams that are going to be in transition going forward. Penrith are in a very, very dominant position where they could be the dominant side for the next decade. Parramatta, this is their window because of so many players moving on in the off-season, after the World Cup and after the end of this Grand Final. This is a must-win now kind of moment. And also it's the battle of the youth systems as well. Penrith and Parramatta, their umbrella, their reach in Western Sydney does overlap, and we have seen like Parramatta Junior switch to Penrith and Penrith switch to Parramatta. So that's very, very interesting. Their catchment areas are very much Western Sydney. It is the Battle of Western Sydney, and Parramatta have to be one of the best supported clubs outside of Sydney as well. And within Sydney, Penrith, they are a juggernaut, but look what happened in their first Grand Final against Melbourne. They were the dominant side in the regular season. They came unstuck in the finals. They took a step back last year in the regular season. They weren't as dominant. They were, dropping games. Melbourne were the minor premiers. And Penrith just, blow it out the water and go on and win the Grand Final. This year, very dominant regular season side. Is the minor premiership a bit of a curse in recent years? Parramatta, consistent top 4 side. They finally got over getting past the second week of the finals, and they did it in some style. against my team, the Raiders, and then they backed that up last week as well. So they are coming in with momentum, which is key. Penrith, yes, they've had that extra week of rest. They looked a little bit off colour at periods against South Sydney, and there are some vulnerabilities creeping in there. But it's going to come down to the forward packs, who can win that first 20 minutes of the forward battle, the interchanges, how with Parramatta having a 3-1 split on the bench, how they use their interchanges more effectively, more tactically. And again, the halves, the kicking game. If Mitch Moses gets on song early and they can put kick pressure on Nathan Cleary and Luai, as we saw in the regular season, that proved key. Much like flip that in the first week of the finals, it was very, very close, and it was literally at half time. It was, okay, let's go for the field goal. Both halfbacks realised that it was going to be a tight game, and then the Mitch Moses injury. In the last game of the regular season, these two sides played, the Nathan Cleary send-off. So discipline and player injury basically could be what does it. It's going to be an interesting affair, and actually got Ashley Clean as referee. That's ruffled a few feathers, but I think Penrith are going in as favourites, but I'm backing Parramatta to do a men and women's double this year as an outside bet if I was a betting man. It's going to come down. I think it's going to be about 6 to 8 points either way. It's going to be close. It's going to be within 8 points, I believe. It's not going to be a blowout. It is going to be a close final, and it could be decided as early as the first 20 minutes who gets dominant in that forward pack and their initial interchange rotation. But thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I will have some more videos for you very, very soon.